Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be covering from the Chessable Masters 2025, Praggnanandhaa versus Wei Yi, and this is the third game of their match. Pragg already lost the first game, then it was a draw, and then if Wei Yi wins another one, it is game over for Pragg. But if he bounces back, he gets to play the fourth game. Or even if it's a draw, he still has a chance to bounce back in the match in game 4. But yeah, there are many games, of course, being played. Many interesting games. This is the one I decided to cover. I like the players, I like the game, so let's start it off with this one. And if you have any suggestions, as usual, use that hashtag suggestions. So let's check it out. Pragg with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 and bishop to f4. Pragg obviously opting for a London system setup. Wei Yi goes g6. We have knight to c3 and pawn to d5. The so-called Chigorin variation here. Pawn to e3 and now bishop to g7. And here usually everyone goes pawn to h4 because why wouldn't you? But here we have knight to b5. Pragg just asking what about the c7 pawn? And there's well, only one good way to defend it. That is knight to e6. We have knight f3 and castles kingside. We have bishop to e2. Knight to e4 and now castles kingside. And here there is a game where bishop to g4 was played, but here we have pawn to c6, and it is now as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So okay, Pragg also puts a knight on the rim. Queen to b6, putting pressure on the b2 pawn, as one usually does against the London. Rook to b1 and bishop to f5, nicely aligning the bishop with that rook, basically x-raying it. We have pawn to h3 and rook a to c8. And now you could strike with pawn to c4 right away, and it would be actually a good plan. Pragg first goes bishop to e5, saying I either want to trade off the dark square bishops, or you can weaken your pawn structure by playing pawn to f6. But Wei Yi says here f6 is not a weakening, as it prepares pawn to e5. So okay, we have bishop back to h2 by Pragg, rook f to e8, now preparing pawn to e5. And pawn to c4. We have knight to b4 and rook back to a1. For the moment, defending the a2 pawn, a little bit passive, but it has to be done. We have pawn to e5, Wei Yi strikes in the center. C captures on d5, we have c captures and d captures on e5. F captures on e5, Wei Yi maintaining the full center. Knight to b5 and now king to h8. Just, getting off of this diagonal should be a useful move. a3, kicking away the knight, and knight back to c2. And here the question is, what do you do about the rook? Do you go rook to c1 or do you go rook b1? Not really, because that would be just weird. It's interesting what happens if you play rook to a2. It's not just that rook to c1 is not a great move. Rook to a2 can also be met with extremely unpleasant knight captures on f2. And now you just have so many issues here. Look at this. If rook captures on f2, you're going to play knight captures on e3. Attack the white queen, and once the white queen moves, you will challenge the knight. And where is the knight going? Of course, to c3. Then you challenge it again, and once it moves, then you go pawn to e4, and this is just very, very bad. Then pawn comes to d3, the rook comes to c2, and it's just a very, very bad position. Even rook c1 in some lines, I mean, this would be just overwhelming. So it's not that the problem is rook to c1, it's just that Pragg's position is already very bad. Rook to c1 was played, now comes knight captures on e3, but rook to c1 is better than rook to a2, of course. We have rook captures on c8, rook captures on c8, and f captures on e3 now. And I seem to have left the C. Sorry about that. Let me just fix that, as it might weird you guys out. And also, I forgot to mention this is played without increments. So players have to be very, very careful. Yeah, and also you guys don't see the times. So let me just add the times real quickly. There we go. Yeah, last time we did the game without time. So there you go. And the players are now 5 minutes on the clock versus 5.5 versus 5.5. And okay, we have queen captures on e3 with check, king to h1, and now knight to f2 with check. It would be a problem if you couldn't give up the rook, so rook captures on f2, but now what we found was not queen captures on f2, but now you have rook to c1, and now you win the white queen. But it's still not that simple to convert, because Pragg just goes back, knight to c3, and what do you play now? it's not that clear. If you just, for example, capture the queen, knight captures, attacks the black queen, and okay, the black queen moves, doesn't really matter, but you know, you have compensation. It's a bishop pair each, plus white has 2 knights and the rook for the queen, and that is more than enough compensation. If not for the strong center, white would even be winning here. This is pretty much equal now. So pawn to d4 is what Wei Yi goes for. Pawn to e4 would have been more precise, but okay, it's a little time on the clock. You can't be that precise. So pawn to d4 was played by Wei Yi. We have rook back to f1, and now he goes after the queen. Rook captures. We have rook captures on d1, and now the problem is, as he allowed this rook basically to weasel his way back to d1, you can't really go for the knight because this rook to d8 check is a big problem, and it will be for quite some time. So here bishop to c2, going after the rook. We have rook to d2, and now bishop back to b3, where it is very useful. Now if maybe captures and if the rook delivers check, maybe you can bring it back to g8, but even that would be insufficient, because here, look at this, bishop to d1, bishop goes back to c4. The problem is, if you, let's say you play something like this, looks pretty good. The problem is now, if check, yes, the bishop can go back, but then you have bishop b3, and again, black has problems here. So after bishop d1, Wei Yi goes bishop to c4, and now Pragg goes bishop to g1, attacks the black queen. You could also go bishop to c2, but who would see such a move? You know, in such a crazy position. Bishop to g1 was played, and now queen to f4. We have bishop to h2, a couple of repeating moves here, queen e3, bishop g1, queen to f4, bishop to h2, and now Wei Yi finds a nice way to continue, and that is queen to f5. Now he calmed the position down, and he's ready to continue pushing those central pawns. We have knight to e2, and now queen to b1, as the knight left control of the b1 square, so why wouldn't you play that? Knight e to g1, and now pawn to e4. Okay, the pawns are marching forward. We have bishop to c2, knight to e5 again can be played. He starts with bishop to c2, attacks the queen. Wei Yi captures on b2. Luckily for him, there are no useful discoveries here. You could capture on e4, for example, bishop captures on e4 looks like a nice discovery, but the queen just captures on a3. So and in fact it was played in this position, sorry, I forgot. So bishop captures on e4, queen captures on a3, and now knight captures on d4. We have queen to e3, attacking the bishop, the knight, and the rook. This was maybe not the best capture. Instead of capturing, knight to e5 would have been better. But after capturing, he leaves the bishop unattended. So queen to e3 with a nice triple attack. You cannot defend everything. Knight d to f3 was played, and now queen captures on e4. And without this bishop, now rook to d8 check is not a problem. The bishop just goes back, and there is no light square bishop to further attack the dark square bishop on g8. So rook to d8 with check. We have bishop to g8, and now rook to b8. Putting some pressure on black's position, but Wei Yi no longer cares. Just pawn to h6. We have knight to d2, attacking the queen, queen to c6, and now knight g to f3. We have king h7, bishop to f4, and now pawn to g5. Bishop back to e3, pawn to a5. Now Wei Yi just pushes his passed pawn, and there is no way for Pragg to stop it. We have rook to a8, pawn to a4. All of the squares are nicely defended. We have king to g1, queen to c3, getting control of the a3 square. And of course, even though the a4 square is undefended, you can't really capture the pawn, as the bishop on e3 is hanging. And that's pretty much it. King f2, pawn to a3, rook to a7. Nothing really much to be done here. Pawn to a2, and he was in this position on move 49 that Praggnanandhaa resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So brilliant to win in the game and in the match by Wei Yi, by winning both of the game with the black pieces, which is very, very cool. And yeah, just you know, nicely done disposing of Pragg. I mean, you've seen how strong Pragg is. 2.5 to half. Pragg just got one draw. That is very, very impressive. But we know how impressive Wei Yi is, and everyone is still, I guess, getting accustomed to this format, because it's one of the, well, I don't remember the last time players had such a serious tournament with such incredible players with 0 seconds increment. That is, you know, when it goes, when time goes low, that is not easy to play. I mean, you will have to pre-move. If you draw below 30 seconds, I mean, if there's still stuff to be played, you're just gonna have to pre-move the entire game, and then blunders will be made. So players, you know, they're basically left with more time than they would have been if they were playing with increment, because here you just don't allow time to drop down solo. But yeah, you know, it's I believe the first event of such kind, you know, not in chess history, as you know, before we didn't have increment, as there were no clocks that allowed increment. But yeah, in modern times, I like it. I myself hate increment. Really, I hate it. I never play with increment if I can play without increment. But you know, seeing top players also use it, you know, I just love seeing it. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. What do you think? Is it better with increment or without increment? You know, I realize, you know, maybe as I'm getting older, it's harder and harder to play without increment, but I still play it. You know, I still play bullet without increment. So yeah, you know, as long as I can do that, I will be very, very happy. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Andreas Rosenthal, Andrew Steinel, Yuri Ralchenko, Nathaniel Devlin, and David Arai for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.